Hey bookworms, welcome back to the channel, welcome if you're new, I'm Sam, and in today's video we're going to be doing my top 10 fantasy books. I feel like I don't really talk about my fantasy books on this channel very much. Recently I posted over in my community page on YouTube a poll of like all these videos that I was going to do. The votes have been pretty even, but the fantasy one definitely got like the most votes, so that's what we're going to do today. I've got my 10 top fantasy books here, which by the way, I feel like I'm really strict when it comes to my fantasy read. I don't just throw out 5 stars. I think I'm like kind of difficult to please when it comes to fantasy, which is like, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Yeah, we're just going to jump straight into it because otherwise we're going to be here all day. I'm just going to go for the top, not going to do these in any order. But the first book here I have is T.J. Klune's Under the Whispering Door. I absolutely love this book and I feel like not many people love this one compared to The House in the Iron Sea, but I loved it just as much. This is so beautifully written and just such a heartbreaking story, but T.J. Klune makes it easy to digest around a really difficult subject of death, but yet he makes it magical and an easy read. Like, although it is still heartbreaking, the way he writes it is just beautiful, and I'm a fan of the story and the characters and the ending of this book. Oh, I remember like my partner played a game. I was like, I'm not gonna cry because I don't like crying when people are around me. Yeah, the tears came and my partner just looked at me and I was like, just leave me alone. Don't let go of me. So for those of you who don't know, in this book we follow a character who has a heart attack and he's died, and then the Reaper comes to get him and takes him to this like little tea house, which is this little tea house here. Like, how beautiful is that? In this tea house we have this guy who is basically the person who helps people pass over, and that's what his job is with our main guy. Our main guy obviously don't initially want to pass over straight away, and as this character grows throughout the book, because at the very beginning of this book he is not a nice guy, he's very selfish, he just isn't very caring towards other people, and as he looks back on his life and starts to like his character develops over time, you just actually end up loving him. And I think that's something that T.J. Klune does really well, is create these characters that have these flaws but build them up over time to the point where you actually end up loving them. And every single character in this book is just lovable, and I couldn't imagine not one of them not being in it. And I really want to get to this one again and read it because, oh my god, this book made me feel so much. But yeah, it had to be like on my top 10. Next one on this list is a book that is completely out of my comfort zone, just not the type of book I would read. I ended up getting it because it was on sale and I was like, I'm going to read it pretty much straight away because that way if I don't like it I can send it back, you know. And that is Six of Crows. Oh boy, did this book completely take me by surprise. But I think it's after the second chapter, I was hooked. I was so hooked that I was just turning the pages and I was getting through this book so quick. And I would just immediately get immersed in the story. This book is just fast paced, there's so much going on. The characters are just some of the best characters I've read. They're all well developed. These characters are just characters that I feel like stand the test of time. Like, that's strong, but I feel like these characters are just known. Like, you can say Cass Brecker and people will just know who he is. Obviously, if you've read books. If you haven't read books, then you might know him from the TV show. And although the sequel, Crooked Kingdom, I gave it a 4 star, I still love the books equally. But this one, yeah, this one probably got me into fantasy. Something might not sound like your thing, but then it could be. If you've not seen the Shadow and Bone like series, they've got the crows in it. They are so perfectly cast, like, and I feel like it's really rare that you can say that they cast the right people, but oh my god, they did. Next up is another book here that this one I would say I'm probably one of the one or only few people that really loved this book compared to like a lot of other people didn't love this, or I just don't see this book talked about enough, and I'm like, why? And I did buy this book by the way based on the cover, and that is The Bright and the Pale. I don't know why, but I love it. I love this book so much. Why are people not talking about this? This is good. But I can understand some of the reasons why people dislike this book as well, but for me, it was just such a cozy, easy read that I just could get into, and I just didn't feel like, you know, I had to think too much. It was just very easy to read and the chapters were short, and I really got into the story really quickly. I read this book a while ago, so I'm going to try and remember exactly what it's about. So I found this character called Val, who's 17, and she lives like in these mountains, and one day something happens where everybody there gets frozen. It all sort of gets frozen in time, but she escapes it. Anyone who escapes it is going to be imprisoned, and it's easy to tell basically that she's from that mountain because they have like really white hair and I think like really light skin, so she has to kind of like dye her hair and hide who she is. She gets taken into this thieves guild, and that's where she is, and she makes friends with this guy and they're really, really close, and one day he dies. Years later, she discovers that he's actually alive, and in order for his safety, she has to travel back to her little mountain town. I think it's called Knot Mountain. So these people are like, look, you gotta help us get back here. Then they go into these mines and get, I think it's like a type of gold or money or something, but basically it makes you very rich and they want this. And obviously she wants her friend's safety, so she's like agrees to it. And this book is about them going up to this mountain again and their journey to get there and all the things that they go through, and also trying to hide from the people that, you know, they find out who she is, you know, dealing with like what's happened in the past and all of this stuff. And although like some people said that they just felt like the relationship between our main character and the guy just didn't feel like really like invest in it. I didn't feel like, I agree with that, like I couldn't really invest in a romance, but I did love their friendship. Yeah, I didn't really care if they had a romantic thing or not. Yeah, unfortunately I didn't love the sequel as much. I can't remember what I gave the sequel. If you haven't read The Bride and Power though, you should definitely check it out because I think it's a really good book. Why are people hating on it? Let's move on to the next book, which by the way, I might have bought because of the cover. And I don't regret it obviously because it's on my top 10 fantasy books. And that is Six Crimson Cranes. And this one is kind of like got a fairy tale feel to it. We're following this girl who has magic and you're not really meant to have magic where she is. It's kind of been like forbidden and people are kind of afraid of it. So she's hiding it. However, some stuff happens on the day that she's supposed to be meeting her future husband. She runs away to like the water and stuff like that. She's chasing a little paper bird thing that she's got, Kiki. Oh my god, by the way. I love it. Who thought you could love a paper bird this much? Me, I do. I love it. The main part of the story is that her stepmother puts a curse on her, so she like kind of banishes her, and she's like got this bowl on her head so no one can see who she is. And although she can speak, she can't, because if she does speak, then her brothers will die every time she utters a word. And her brothers have been turned into 6 cranes. So this story is about her just trying to get through and get back home to defeat her stepmother, but also be reunited with her brothers. But also she ends up actually having to stay with her future betrothal, and she actually learns a lot more about him. So we do have like romance in it, but for me this story is more about like her bond with her brothers and how much they would do for each other. That's what I loved about this, and it has that really nice fairy tale vibe to it. So yeah, the story is just as beautiful as this cover, because this cover is honestly stunning. By the way, the sequel was not for me. The cover's beautiful. Yeah, we're not going to talk about that because I'm going to do a video where I'm disappointed with books I feel hyped with, but spoiler. So next up is This Fisher's Grace. This one I wasn't too sure if I was going to enjoy, but I mean it sounded pretty decent. So in this book we're following this character who is, she's got these powers, she's like the chosen one, so her touch can pretty much kill. However, the person she's supposed to choose that is supposed to make her powers like stronger, their touch doesn't like kill you. You can't kill them. But she's had 3 weddings now and 3 funerals, and she has one last trap now to find a person who can help her with her powers being stronger, so then when this battle comes, they can defeat it. But that's not so easy because she just doesn't know how to use her powers and she doesn't really understand it. Yeah, and the pressure is on because things start to get quite intense with this book and you feel that intensity. Also, our main character doesn't know who she can trust inside the palace that she's living in. So she ends up deciding that she's going to go out and get herself a bodyguard. And is there a romance that she may or may not be having with her bodyguard? There may be, because oh my god, this book is so good. But what I like the most about this book is how it built up the intensity. She needs to pick someone and she needs to know how to use her magic in order not to kill that person, because this battle is coming, and especially after something happens and it's like, oh, we don't have long now. But the battle, oh my god, the way the battle was written was like the best. I was like, wow. And I don't know if this is a sequel coming out. I really hope so. I mean, actually thinking about what happened at the end of this book, now that I remember, I think there is, and I can't wait. Next up is a series that I have talked about so many times. I've even done like a review for the series, which you can check out if you want, and that is Serpent and Death. Oh my god. I almost let people put me off from reading this because people are like, it's like fanfiction, it's not good. Huh? Nah, you're wrong. This is so good. This is good. I love it. I love the characters. I love the story. I love all 3 books. Number 2 was more of a 4-star for me, but I love it. Like, I miss reading from this author because I miss these characters so much. So for those of you who don't know, we're following Lou, who is a witch, and then we've got Reed, who is a witch hunter, and he's been pretty much brought up to believe that witches are pretty evil and that they should be burned at the stake. And these 2 characters meet and something happens to the point where they end up having to be forced into a marriage because the bishop's like, you 2 need to get married, right? She's now living inside where all the people who hunt witches are because she has to move in with her husband Reed, and none of them know she's a witch. So yeah, this is enemies to lovers, and it is done so well. Lou's character is just like, oh my god, she is who she is, and she's not gonna like, if she wants to wear trousers, she will, you know, it's frowned upon. She's gonna do what she wants to do, and she really annoys Reed so much. But the romance that happens throughout this book, how it builds, was just so good. The action so good, the twists were great. Oh my god, the ending of this book was just like, I need to read that next book, even though I did not read that next book straight away because I was scared. But it's so good. If you like witches and you like the whole enemies to lovers, then pick that book up because like it gives you that. And it gives you plenty of action as well. Next book is by an author we've already talked about, and that is TJ Klune's House in the Thrilling Sea. I feel like every single person in the world loves this book, and if you don't, then okay, you're being different, that's okay. This book is honestly one of those books that I remember, like, at the time, I was not into fantasy. So I was like, do I want to read this? Maybe. Everyone's talking about it, I want to see what the fuss is about, and oh my god, I love this book, I love these characters. It's such a sweet book because it's about like found family and you know how people fear you when you're not actually dangerous at all, and how you can get misinterpreted just because of people fearing you. And it's like that's this message, like when people fear you, they're afraid of you, and because they're afraid of you, they end up hating you. And in this book we're from this character called Linus, who's like a social worker for like I guess magical children, and he gets told he has to go to the House of the Sea, right, where there's these children that are very said to be dangerous. And you know, so he gets his cat and he goes. So he meets these children, and we have a gnome girl, the Antichrist, a boy that can shapeshift into a dog, a little fairy, green blob. Linus at first is really scared. Like he's really scared of these children, especially the Antichrist. I mean, you would be, wouldn't you? And as time goes on, you just fall in love with these kids, and you watch Linus like slowly becoming more and more comfortable. But this book breaks your heart as well just because of how they're treated. And my partner's not read this book yet, and I'm like, dude. Next up, we have a cozy one. This one I read recently, and I actually did a reading vlog, so if you want to go and check that out, I will link that below. And that is Legends and Lattes. I feel like most people put this on their top 10 books of 2022, and for that reason I was like, well, I need to see what this is about. And if you like TJ Klune, then I think you'd like this one because it's got the same sort of cozy feeling. In this book we're following this orc who has decided that she wants to stop doing battle, she wants to hang up her sword, and she wants to open a coffee shop in a town that nobody really knows what coffee is. And that is what the book is about, it's her basically opening up a coffee shop and making friends. That is what it's about. It's cozy and it's warm, and it's just, you fall in love with the feeling and the vibe, and it just makes you feel so, like you could literally wrap it up in a blanket and read this, and it's perfect. But it's also just like the characters you just love. Like my favourite character in this book is his little rat. Well, he's not a little rat, he's like Ratkin? I'm saying it wrong, I'm not good at fancy. So he's like, he's a PR maybe, but I love him. Because he doesn't say much, so he kind of like gestures and stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, I want him. But also I love the character in this, the main one, the orc. I don't know her name. Viv. I actually love it also. My cover's different, but like, I still have like this on the inside of this jacket, which I think is what the cover is. So the reason I was reading it is to have that cozy feeling, and that's exactly what it gave me. So yeah. Next up are two of my absolute favourite books, and the first one, I feel like so many people know what this book is and have read it, and if you haven't, what are you doing? Read it. I mean, I love this one so much, I went out and got a special anniversary illustrated edition, which by the way, I have my full review of this book, non-spoilery, and a look inside. If you're interested, I'll link that below. And that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I read this because my partner, my mum, actually voted for me to read this one, otherwise I might not have even read it by now, which is like crazy because of how much I love this book. I will say this book is very slow getting into it, and I was a little bit like, oh, am I going to love this one? But as it went on, I just started loving it more and more and more. Is this book perfect? No. I mean, the chapters where we get Henry's point of view, I was always just want to get back to Addie, and that's not because I didn't like Henry's chapters or they weren't good, but it's just because I was so invested in Addie's life that I wanted to get back to where we were with her. If you don't know, we are on a character called Addie who can't die. However, this comes at a cost because that means everybody she meets when they leave a room or they turn away from her, they no longer remember her. So she can't be remembered. She can't even say her own name or write her own name. She can't leave her mark on the world. So she goes through life, and it's very lonely because imagine your entire life you can't meet friends and you can't fall in love or have children or a home or anything like that because she's just forgotten. So it's like, living forever really be worth that? Because I wouldn't want that. And I remember reading this book and feeling so lonely for Addie while reading this. This book is honestly such a masterpiece. It's beautifully written, and I can't ever imagine reading another book by this author that's going to top this, to be honest. I did read her newest book called Gallon, and I didn't enjoy it, to be honest. When I heard that they're making this into a movie, which, why not turn it into a series? Then you don't have to cut so much. But I heard that the author is actually going to be working on a script, so I mean, that gives us some hope, right? Next up is another book that, like I said, is one of my favourite books, and this one took me by surprise. I remember hearing about it and I was like, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. So I went out, got it, and I loved it, and that is Only a Monster. The sequel comes out for this in like this year. But basically we follow this character who discovers that her family are basically known as monsters because of what they can do. So they can travel in time by touching someone on the neck like here, and that basically steals the life from someone. So you could take like an hour, and that takes an hour off that person's life, which if you think about it, that's a little messed up. Because if you take too much, then you would just drop down in bed. You just don't know like when that person's meant to die, and obviously if you're taking like hours or months or years of their life, they could just die, which is cruel. So our character only discovers this by accident, when she accidentally takes I think a whole day from someone, and she wakes up and she's like, wait, what's going on? She has no idea, and this is where her family finally decide to tell her because they've been keeping it from her. But also she discovers that the person that she likes could be her enemy, but also she accidentally met with her other enemy, who she dislikes. Is like this family. The two families do not get along, and they kind of have to team up together when some stuff goes down. And this book is just so good because you have like time travel, you've got historic fiction, the fantasy element. There was so much that happens in this book. One of my favourite parts is when they have to travel back in time, which a massive chunk of this book takes place in. The reason why they have to go back in time is because she needs to go back and warn her grandmother before like she's even born or she's had kids, that this is going to happen, in order to try and stop it. Yeah, but also every single person in her family has like a certain power, ability, so she's always trying to work out what hers is, which you do find out at the end. There's plenty of action. There was just so much that kept the story so interesting and making you want to carry on reading and reading. I mean, I think I read this book really fast. So yeah, that's my top 10 books, my top 10 fantasy books. Are any of these on your list? Are these on your top 10? Have I missed out any that you love, that you think I would love? Because I know there's some fantasy books I have read, like The Crescent City, #1, and that's a 4-star out of 5 for me, and that's really shocking for people, but like I said, I'm so picky. But this is kind of like my taste of fantasy, so you probably now know what my 5-star fantasy books are. So recommend me some below that you think I like, and I might do a video where I read them. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and until next time, bye!